Hey guys, so I wanted to make this video for a while. I started watching some Charlie Kirk. Like I said, I don't like debates. I don't really get into that kind of thing. But I decided to watch Charlie Kirk. It's just something I just wanted to do. And I was starting to watch a lot of his stuff. I was like, this ain't bad. You know, uh, he's just going back and forth and whatnot. Sure, I mean, I don't like debates, and I I do feel that you know Charlie can put people down. I mean, that's valid for debating, but that's I don't know how you would say it. It's just the you're 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 guiding something, and you gotta challenge the points. So I just and then Charlie just does. Yeah, it's a brand. So yeah, I just don't like. I mean, I watch his stuff. I was starting to like him, but then I watched one of his. We'll go over this video. He was doing a video about immigration. Someone brought the topic, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about what Turning Point is to give you an idea, the foundation of what this video is about. So, Turning Point USA is an American nonprofit organization that advocates for conservative politics on high school, college, and university campuses. Not very helpful, but basically, a lot of people started their conservative careers, U.S. government, and all this, serving actual offices in U.S. government through his organization. So basically, he's a unsanctioned political organization, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you do get some challenges with that, which we're going to see in this video. So I can't find this video about. I tried to look for it. I can't find it. I was watching this video. It's an excerpt of well, I think it's a more like a common collection of his best debates 2024. So Charlie Kirk is no stranger to immigration debates. So as you can see right here, but I was reading the headlines here, and one stands out to me. It's kind of like a spoiler alert about why I'm looking at this one video, because this one is different than the other ones I've seen. There's a whole bunch of them. They're pretty much all the same. But this one is different. I haven't checked this, but we're going to see what this is. I don't know if it's the same one. I'm just going by the headline, and it's catching my attention. So let's see what this one says.
They don't want to know how toxic this is. If you're buying produce from the grocery store, you need to see this.
So first step is add clean water about 3/4 of the way up. Next, throw some salt in, doesn't have to be measured. And finally, just sit back and wait 5 minutes and voila.
Hi, Charlie. Great to meet you. Thank you for letting me speak on your platform. First of all, I really disagree with you in a lot of things.
Be respectful, guys. Guys, it's fine. Part of what makes America a great country.
It does.
Whoops. Let's see what happened there. My first time recording from Safari, I had to mute my mic so you wouldn't get double channel. But then when I clicked that, it doing it, and then OBS was doing something weird to the thing where I couldn't close anything, and it kept right clicking. It seems to be fixed right now. So yeah, that was different. That's not this one. So I'm going to close that. We're going to watch this one. I will warn you that it is... how do I say this? If you're familiar with Charlie Kirk, you will see that he's out of his league on this one, which is... You'll see what I'm talking about. If you know it, you see it. And then when you see it, you're free to... I have chapters on this video, so if you want to skip over it, you can skip over there and we can discuss all of this. But it is bad once you see it. Once you start, you're like... it's just weird. It's hard to explain. You have to see it to understand it. Some of you will immediately catch on to it. I caught on to it. And then he just starts escalating it. It's a weird thing, but we're going to see. And given his position, this wouldn't be a problem if he was just an average person. Like, for example, if it was the other way around and he was saying all this stuff and she was responding, this would be different, completely different. She wouldn't have the problem. Well, she might have a problem, but because that scrutiny, he is supposed to... There's a whole big thing behind this, but this is the one where Charlie is, as far as I can see, this is probably the one that Charlie, this is the one that got him actually killed. This is not the same video as him being shot. This is the one that actually, he was seen as a problem at this point. So we're going to watch this, and if you see it, feel free to skip to the next chapter where I analyze everything. And I have not seen the full of this. It was so painful to watch, and I was like, this guy needs to stop talking. But it was just so hard for me to watch. So this is my first time watching the full thing. And I did see under in the comment section that there were people talking about trafficking and what she thought about that. I haven't seen that part, but again, it's not good. So we're gonna watch this, and we're gonna see. We're gonna analyze it afterwards. Okay, let's get started.
The way that the asylum laws are written, the entire nation of Mexico applies under asylum. Do you think that you have a right to immigrate to America? Is diversity and inclusion really an American ideal?
I knew you
Are
were...
you okay with deporting every illegal person that's here? Do you think that the American government should first have an obligation to citizens before foreigners? Nobody is asking these questions. We're just saying, if you want to come in, you can come in. Do you see anything wrong with, I don't know, taking in 5% of the population of Haiti? If someone comes into your dorm room uninvited and they do the dishes and laundry, they can stay?
If I'm not gonna do my own dishes, heck yeah! Hi. All right.
Hello.
Oh, hi. I'm gonna start off by saying I'm a political science student. I'm a second year here at K-State. And I'm a first generation student.
Try to turn it up a little bit.
Turn it up a little bit?
Yeah, perfect, great, thank you. And what's your name again?
Alondra.
Nice to
Alvarez.
meet you.
Yeah. So I just had a question, because you talk a lot about like protecting and securing our southern borders. But as the granddaughter of immigrants, I think that we get into a lot of complicated disputes with the idea that immigrants are criminals or drug dealers and things like that. So I just want to hear what your opinion is on those expectations or those, what do you call it, those stereotypes that are put on Hispanic communities, Latino communities, and how they change the way people perceive immigration.
Sure. So, thank you for the question. So you said you're the first generation
Yes,
student
I am.
or first generation American?
I'm a first generation student.
Cool, great. Second generation American? Did I hear that right? Or-
Third generation
Cool.
American on my mom's side.
Great.
Second on my dad's.
When your grandparents, then, is that right, came
Yes.
to this country, did they do so through the legal process that was in front of them?
So my father got married to my mother, so he's a legal resident of the United States. She's been here her entire life.
But did she enter legally?
She did.
Okay.
She's born here. Yeah.
Got it.
My grandpa on my dad's side entered in illegally.
Okay. So I'm not here to like insult your grandpa, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, but we must be very clear that the type of immigration that we support is when you follow our rules and you come on our terms, and that you do not break into a country uninvited and you try to cut in.
Can I add something to that? The reason why he left, and a lot of people in Mexico do, is because of the political state, especially in the 70s and 80s, when they decided to move. They have a government that isn't supportive of their constituents, and because of drug problems, their only choice was to move.
Yeah, I totally sympathize. That's not true. It's never the only choice to commit a crime, and we should not put up with it. And so it is an insult to other immigrants from Vietnam and Laos and Pakistan that have to wait decades in line to morally equivalate people that come in and just break in. Oh, I have an unstable country. Like half of the world's countries are unstable.
Yeah, but that's why we have the asylum seekers program,
which is heavily abused. And we're talking two different things. Asylum seekers and walking into the country illegally are similar but different things, right? And so we have millions of gotaways of people that we have no idea who they are. They're not declaring asylum. They just run across the border.
Well, because they can't. The system doesn't allow other people from Mexico specifically to assign themselves
who they are the last couple of years. So look, we just have to be very clear with this, is that if you come into the country uninvited, you have committed a crime and you are a criminal. And we could decide that we're not going to enforce our laws, or we can say that when you are a criminal, you should then be punished for that crime, aka sent back to your country of origin, because you were not invited. And it is an insult, again, to the Poles and to the Czechoslovakians and from the Senegalese and people all across the world that don't have the proximity or the luxury just to waltz into America.
You call it a luxury to leave a country that has political tyranny and come into a country with opportunity?
Yes, to live in Mexico, to be able to go 100 miles north and break into America. Do you know how many people in Pakistan would kill to be on that border?
That's why we bring them in.
Well, we shouldn't, right? That's the point. And secondly, do you think that you have a right to immigrate to America?
I think that I didn't have a choice. My grandparents made that decision for me.
And I'm not trying to attack your grandparents, but no one has a right to go to anybody else's country. You are invited. It is a privilege, not a right, to come into America.
So it's a privilege to live a life that requires you to have clean water, clean food, clean air.
Yes, of course it is.
And you have to fight for that?
Yes, it is not.
But we didn't?
Hold on a sec. Well,
born here, we didn't fight for that?
Well, my ancestors did fight for that, actually, and I'm a very thankful recipient of many generations of Americans that fought for the greatest nation ever to exist.
By doing what? Coming here?
Well,
illegally?
Wait, what did my ancestors do? They
came here illegally.
They came over here in 1620, fought in the Revolutionary War, fought in the Civil War, fought in World War I.
So because my grandpa didn't come here in
II.
1620, it gives him no right to have a good life?
No, he can fill out paperwork and wait in line like the rest of the world. And then we can see whether or not it's in our best interest to allow him to come in. And so we have to weigh costs and benefits. I'm not saying we should have no immigrants, but immigration must be a net benefit for the American homeland and for the American citizen. We have brought in 10 million people in these last couple of years. We have now brought in 5% of the population of Haiti. Nobody is asking these questions. We're just saying, if you want to come in, you can come in. Do you see anything wrong with, taking in 5% of the population of Haiti?
Not necessarily, no. If we have the land and the resources to house them, it shouldn't be that big deal to bring in immigrants.
Really? Do you think that the American government should first have an obligation to citizens before foreigners?
Okay, I think we have an
answer
obligation.
The question. Yeah.
Here's the thing. Yeah, we're obligated because we're citizens to have the rights that we have, but that doesn't mean we can't open up our borders when we have the process to do so.
You, being a younger American, and everyone in the audience, is the first generation in American history to have it be worse off than your parents. So and you agree with that, social contract, poorer, more expensive. Yeah. So wouldn't it be rational for the American government to say, we're going to prioritize younger generation Americans that are American passport holders and citizens before those in another nation?
I don't want to say anything that offends people, but I've
go
already
ahead.
said it, right? I've already said it. Whatever. I think that the way we're going about it is wrong. And that if we don't have a clear path to citizenship, we won't open up those opportunities for people to come and seek a good life. But I also think we are required to have those rights ourselves.
Seeking a
as
good
American
life
citizens.
is fine. It's a nice added benefit. Our government does not exist to improve the life of foreign citizens.
But we should be open to the idea of accepting that.
Of course we are, if we have our own house in order. We are in chaos right now. We have the most depressed, suicidal, anxious generation in history. Our birth rate is collapsing. Kids can't afford homes.
Yeah.
You guys are drowning in debt. You have to compete you have to compete for jobs against foreigners. Our country is a mess right now. And so when your country's a mess and your home is in disarray and bedlam, your own government should say, time out. I have a heart for the people of Haiti. I have a heart for the people of every country. But you're not coming here until this generation at least has it as good as their parents.
But it's the stereotype that I'm given as a Mexican American to fulfill those standards that people have on immigration as well.
I don't share that. I haven't said that here today. There's people from all over the world that enter the southern border now. There's 118 countries that come across the southern border. But I don't care if you enter illegally from Bulgaria or from Laos or from Mexico or from Nicaragua. Someone who does not have their paperwork when they come in is by definition breaking federal law.
Yeah,
and so then what should we do with someone who breaks with federal law?
But does that mean that people, including their children, their grandchildren, including myself, have to live with the stereotype or the standard set upon me that I am a criminal, I am a drug dealer, I am a XYZ?
Okay, so have I played into that stereotype?
I've heard it many, many times, not from you specifically today.
Okay, but then it's a little bit of a red herring, right? Because we're not even talking about it. I'm not...
Well, my original question was, what do you think about it?
What do I think about stereotypes?
About the stereotype given to immigrants right now and children of immigrants and people of color here.
Well, I can't talk about something I don't believe in. So, I mean, I don't want people to be stereotyped. No different than when you look at a young white man on campus, you think he's a rapist, right? Which is...
No, I don't.
Well, that's good. No, but that is a stereotype that is pushed sometimes. Like, oh, if you see a young man on campus, it's campus rape culture. Stereotyping is wrong. It should not occur. But we also must understand that the way that we constitute our immigration policy right now in this country is not in the benefit of the American citizen. And we're acting much more like a colony than a country. And where a country is where you have ties that bind you together. You have a shared history, hopefully a shared language. You have a shared culture, where a colony is you come from anywhere across the world, and so be it.
Yeah, but isn't that like the point of America? Diversity and inclusion and belonging.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Where is that in the Constitution or the Declaration that diversity and inclusion, these are false ideals that are taught in school? They're, I guess, nice, but is diversity and inclusion really an American ideal?
I think so.
Where does it say that?
I think that everyone has the right to live out their own individuality, their own lives, in their own way.
I know, but you say the American ideal. Where do you get that from? Yeah, pursuit of happiness for Americans. You're right, because that's what the Declaration
I'm an
was
American.
written for. No, that's fine.
Does that mean I'm not valid here for having a diverse background?
No, of course you are, but I'm saying that what?
So can I not express that?
No, don't change the topic. You said we should be able to open up the country for people from all across the world.
Yeah.
Why do we believe that is a core belief?
Because we want to help people. That's the point. We came here a
Got
long time ago. We established a country a long time ago, and we want to have other people come in, I think, to live in the luxury that we live in now.
Last question.
I knew
Are you okay with deporting every illegal person that's here?
No.
Why?
Because there's some people here that are not represented well by the media. There's a lot of illegal immigrants here that are working their butts off for the life that they want.
I don't care if they're working hard. But the point is, what should the punishment be for breaking into a country?
Depends on the crime you commit after you break into it.
Okay, that's it. I'm talking about just the crime is breaking in. What should the punishment be? I break into somebody's home. What should their punishment be?
Can you repeat that?
Oh, so if you behave after you get here, that's fine. So to play that out, if someone comes into your dorm room uninvited and they do the dishes and laundry, they can stay?
If I'm not going to do my own dishes, heck yeah. They're doing my dishes for me? Cool. If they don't kill me, I'm not dead. It is what it is, man.
Well, they are killing a lot of Americans, but...
You say they. Like they are?
Yes,
like
they.
All illegal immigrants kill people? That's crazy.
Many illegals do. Actually, the crime rate for illegals is far above that of native-born Americans. And even if it wasn't, it would not be there. No, but it's just interesting. The punishment for the crime of breaking into a nation should be what it is in Switzerland and Israel and Hungary. Every person who breaks into a nation uninvited goes back to their country of origin, period.
So why is there an emphasis on the southern border?
because most people come illegally through the southern border. 10 million people have come across the southern border. And by the way, do you have any concern for the 320,000 missing kids that have also been sex trafficked across the southern border?
Of course I do.
But who's doing the sex trafficking?
A handful of people, not everybody else.
320,000, that's a lot.
The children.
Yeah, but each one of them has a handler.
I'm just...
So, and that means that 320,000 sex pimps are bringing in sex slaves to this country.
The point I'm trying to make is that we categorize all illegal immigrants under the same thing: sex traffickers, drug dealers.
Am I
and
doing
by
that?
you saying all illegal immigrants have to be deported,
Yes.
you're implying that all of
I'm not
them
implying
are
anything.
doing these
I'm being
terrible things,
super
and not a
clear.
small percentage of them.
Well, it's not small, actually. 320,000 out of 10 million is not small, actually. That's a serious number. That's 3.2% of all people that came into the country are connected to sex slavery in some way. That's insane, actually. 3.2% are connected to sex slavery. That's like a lot. But anyway, so let's just I want to just make clear. If you come into a country uninvited, definitionally you are a criminal.
We're just not going to agree.
It's fine. Then
That's
final
okay.
question. What is a criminal?
What is a criminal?
No. What is it? Would you agree with the definition that a criminal is someone who breaks the law?
Here's where I'm thinking. Here's the thing. I know how he's going to turn it, and I don't fully agree.
It's not a matter of turning it. It's a very ABC sequence. If they're not criminals, then tell me what a criminal is. And a criminal is obviously someone who breaks the law. Someone who comes across the southern border broke federal law, therefore they are a criminal.
Okay, then we can just disagree.
But you have to tell me what a criminal is, though.
Trump!
Oh, Trump, yeah.
Yo!
You got to come up to the mic. Okay,
She's right behind me.
yeah.
Have fun.
Can't tell me what a criminal is, yeah. It's so sad. It's because if you want to really get down to it.
I apologize if that was too loud. I got my Safari right here. And it is my first time recording from Safari. Well, actually, it's my second time recording from Safari, but not on OBS. I don't think I've recorded on OBS. I've done on Ecamm, but not OBS. So if that was too loud, I apologize. So I took some notes, and I was looking for like body language and things. And one of them was at 3:10. So if I go to 3:10. Wait, maybe it was 4:10. Wait, 5:10 I mean, not 3:10. Why'd I put 3? Why'd I put 3 if it's 5? Hang on, let me look at this. Is it 5:10? 5:10 makes sense. Okay, let's see what is being said here. Because this is the first part. Now I looked at body language, and I believe this is... Alright, let's see. Wait, hang on, Here, I'm going to mute my mic, and then we're going to play.
Room, uninvited, and they do the dishes and laundry, they can stay?
If I'm not going to do my own dishes, heck yeah. Hi. All right.
Oh, that's what that was. Why did I put that in notes? Okay, hang on, I gotta move these down. That's when the actual video starts. So we're gonna do... So, okay, now it makes sense on the timestamps. But why did I record it like that? Okay. Wait. Oh, I know what that was. That was me to check something. It's weird how the actual video starts at 5:10. No, that's the timestamp on the video. I was like, where's that number coming from? Alright, I see. I see what I did now. Okay. Many people would have got that. Now that I'm watching it, it's like I can't see it now. But I do remember when I was going through binge watching his videos, it was like, this is a very different debate than he does with immigration. And I don't know if she did this on purpose, but we're going to discuss this. Alright, so my timestamp is 7:25. 7:25. Hang on guys, there's dogs behind me. I probably have to end this video for a second. Alright, let's get started.
That isn't supportive of their constituents, and because of drug problems, their only choice was to move.
Yeah, I totally sympathize. That's not true. It's never the only choice to commit a crime, and we should not put up with it. And so it is an insult to other immigrants from Vietnam.
Alright. I think she did do that on purpose, because notice how she has that grin and she starts to nod because he didn't catch on what she just said. So, for those who didn't catch on to what she just said, she was talking about drugs. Now, Charlie Kirk doesn't debate on laws like this. They don't talk about drugs. And as you may know, and I'm about to go on a tangent here, that would be... Now, when I first saw that, I was like, yeah, he's out of his league. So, for those who don't know, Mexico has the cartels and all of that. And that's about the DEA and the CIA. And that's been a big thing. I'm going to go on a tangent here and talk about someone known as Kiki. If you know the DEA, you know Kiki, you know Red Ribbon Week. So, this is what I was talking. So, Kiki, he was killed by a double agent of the CIA. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It's like Camarena. So, Enrique Kiki Camarena Salazar was a Mexican-American agent of the Drug Enforcement Administration. In February 1985, Camarena was kidnapped by police officers hired by the Guadalajara cartel. After being brutally tortured for information, Camarena was eventually killed. So he was killed by a double agent. It was a big story, and they honored him by creating Red Ribbon Week. You know where it says "Say no to drugs"? I used to have a challenge coin for that. Yeah, Red Ribbon Week started in 1985 in response to the murder of Drug Enforcement Administration Special Agent Kiki. Local community tributes in California led to the first official national campaign in 1988, organized by the National Family Partnership. He was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered in Mexico by drug traffickers. The agreement is that it was a double agent of the CIA. Yeah, that's what happened. Let's continue with the video. This is tough because I gotta press this microphone button to mute it, and then I gotta press play, so I gotta pay attention that I don't mess this up. Alright, let me see what I got on my timestamp. I got 9:35. And she actually makes a comment on this. I didn't note that. I don't think I've noted that. But she does make a comment on that. So maybe that's what maybe I did note it. Let's see. 9:35 I said. We're going to start a little bit early.
for that?
Well, my ancestors did fight for that, actually, and I'm a very thankful recipient of many generations of Americans that fought for the greatest nation ever
By
to
doing
exist.
what? Coming here?
Well,
Illegally?
wait, what did my ancestors do?
Came here
They
illegally.
came over here in 1620, fought in the Revolutionary War, fought in the Civil War, fought in World
So
War I,
because my grandpa
fought in World
didn't
War
come here in
II.
1620, it gives him no right to
Well,
have a good
no,
life?
he can fill out paperwork and wait in line like the
Okay.
rest of the world, and then we can
Sure.
see what.
All right. So basically, what he says here, he's responding to her directly, but there's another aspect to this. So then he says, and remember, he is a unsanctioned government political organization. But what he said was he has the right to do this because of 1620. He's not addressing the drug question. He's not talking about the DEA, the CIA. He's not talking about that. He's talking about the immigration. See, there's two conversations happening here. And he's only able to respond to one of them because that's how he does debates. I think she might have done that on purpose with that grinning. I didn't notice that before, but when I was paying attention to behavior this time, I think she might have done that on purpose. But yeah. So he gives him the right because he had ancestors from 1620 that fought for this. So he has the thing, which, by the way, predates the federal government, which predates all of the federal government. So he says he has a right. So now he's speaking with federal authority where he doesn't have any. Yeah, that's a problem. What else did he say? It's not what he said, it's what he didn't say. And she makes the comment afterwards that her father, that because she's an immigrant, she doesn't have the same rights as he does. He says, I'm not saying that. See, but he's not. You see what I'm talking about? It's like she knows that. I think she might have done it on purpose. I don't know if she addressed it. Let me check.
Not it's in our best interest to allow him to come in. And so we have to weigh costs and benefits. I'm not saying we should have no immigrants, but immigration must be a net benefit for the American homeland and for the American citizen. We have brought in 10 million fought in the Revolutionary War, fought in the Civil War, fought in World War I.
So because my grandpa didn't come here in
II.
1620, it gives him no right to have a good
no,
life?
he can fill out paper.
It was that last part. That might be a coincidence, but it still applies here. It just happened that she was responding to what he said, but it relates. Oh crap! I was opening Google Earth. I did not want it to light my computer while I was recording a video, so I had to cancel right there because I clicked on the wrong thing. So I have 12:35. We're gonna go a little before that because it's hard to get my timestamps accurate. All right, let's see.
Today, there's people from all over the world that enter the southern border now. There's 118 countries that come across the southern border. But I don't care if you enter illegally from Bulgaria or from Laos or from Mexico or from Nicaragua. Someone who does not have their paperwork when they come in is by definition breaking federal law.
Yeah,
And
but,
so then what should we do with someone who breaks with federal
but does that mean that people...
law?
Yeah,
And
but,
so then what should we do with someone who breaks with federal law?
but does that mean that people, including their...
All right, so I went back over there. I ended it right when he said that. His mistake here was he should have said U.S. law, not federal law. Again, he's speaking at that level of authority, which he doesn't have. Yeah, that's a problem. And he's not addressing any of this. And I have it on 13 minutes that he does the same thing. Let's see what they say there. 13 minutes. I guess I'll just play it from right here. It could be tied to the same thing for all I know. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense if it did. All right, let's play.
And their grandchildren, including myself,
not
have
you.
to live with the stereotype or the standard set upon me that I am a criminal, I
I'm
am
not
a drug dealer, I am a XYZ.
Okay, so I played into that stereotype.
I've heard it many, many times, not from you specifically today.
Okay, but then it's a little bit of a red herring, right? Because we're not even talking about it. I'm not.
Well, my original question was, what do you think about it?
What do I think about stereotypes?
About the stereotype given to immigrants right now and children of immigrants and people of color here.
Well, I can't talk about something I don't believe in. So I mean, I don't want people to be stereotyped. No different.
All right. There wasn't really much any there. It's just pretty much the same thing. And it goes off kind of off the rails at that point with how she responds to that. And I couldn't follow that. And it just kind of goes off the rails. Like when they brought up the drug trafficking, the child trafficking, you could tell I was like, was he talking about handlers and what pimps? I think he said. I was like, really? He's using like that. That's the first time he said handler, but CIA and all that. So he's not even. That's what makes this whole thing strange. It's not like his other debates, and that's a problem. Yeah. So let's see. Let's do in what I want to do next. I wanna do this in ChatGPT. I did this in ChatGPT yesterday to see if the LLM could catch on to what was being talked about, and it did. But I know that it was just like Charlie Kirk. It didn't know what it was talking. It didn't know. It didn't have awareness. So let's see how we do this. Hang on, guys. So Charlie Kirk so this girl brings up would I call that a problem? Maybe, maybe not. Let's see. There was a problem with the illegal immigration. Can we talk about it? Okay, that's interesting. Oh wait, guys, I'm sorry. You can't see what I'm typing on ChatGPT. I'm not. This is my first time doing this. I'm using Atlas. Oh dear. Oh, okay. Okay, that was fine. Okay, I gotta switch this. Switch my inputs here. Okay, so there was a problem with the debate with a girl immigration. Can we had a girl regarding immigration? Can we talk about it? It's interesting what replied here. It said absolutely, human debates have the habit of starting one issue and then quietly smiling in three others through the black door. Interesting way to put that. It's like inviting someone over for coffee and discovering they brought a marching band. And the marching band came right through the debate, and Charlie Kirk didn't even see it coming. Very interesting given this topic. Okay, it's going back to we did talk about this, going back to a history thing. But I did not specifically say what the problem was. So from what I remember, you mentioned a debate where a girl said her grandfather came to the U.S. illegally to escape drugs in Mexico, and Charlie Kirk responded by arguing she shouldn't have U.S. citizenship despite her being born in the United States. You also said that the part that immediately stood out to you was her explanation for why her grandfather came, which was for the drugs. Those are often three different. What Charlie actually argued what you think they imply beneath the surface. It's very interesting about that because no one caught that onto it. Someone should have been like behind him. I guess the guy behind him didn't pay attention to what he was saying. I'm sure he's just there for security. But someone should have like poked him on the back and said, you know, you're starting to escalate this and you should start shutting up now. But, you know, be like, just say, we got to talk about something that's important. And then they just end it right there. And then it got sent on to YouTube where millions of people saw it. And then it was just a problem at that point. So I said, but she brought rights. He talks about his rights as having ancestry in 1620, and then he talks about federal law. You see what I'm saying here? I think the LLM doesn't realize what it's saying. It's like it's just happens to be saying words. I don't think it's aware of what it's saying. She appealed to circumstances. State court ancestry appealed to federal law, regardless of immigration law depends. Okay, so it doesn't know. See, it's not a moral discussion. It was he was speaking with federal authority. See, a foreigner wouldn't say that. If he understood the foreignness of what he was saying, he would say, well, because a foreigner wouldn't say, well, I have a right to do this, be a political government advocacy group, whatever it is, because I am a foreigner. No one would say that. They would say that if they were a settler, and that's who they would appeal to. That would be the audience for people who were ancestors here who did not immigrate. Yeah, that's very. I find that very alienating. But from a federal perspective, if you say stuff like that, everyone's a foreigner to them. They don't know your motives. And I'll talk about what Charlie could have done at this point had he realized what he had said there and what he didn't say. But because it wasn't about what you say, it's about are you aware of what you said. With debates, that's very difficult. Like I said in my first video about Charlie, I said, someone can have a debate and lead you down a path to show where your mind is, what you're doing. Maybe not motives of intentions, but you don't want someone to view that and say, well, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? And you don't even address it. See, I said, but had he said U.S. law, which when you're in the government, Congress, and all that, you're in the republic system, that wouldn't be a problem. Which is usually where he stands. I mean, he doesn't go beyond the... But in this one, he was talking about federal law. He was talking about... He wasn't addressing people in the room. If you know, you know. Honestly, I don't think a liberal would have made that mistake. I know that in government, you wouldn't make that mistakes because everything you say is checked. They either give you a script to read from, or you have to turn in your script to a higher authority. going on a little tangent about that, that reminds me of when was turning. I have to go to Google for a second. When was Turning Point USA founded? June 5th, 2012. Interestingly enough, what happened during this time was churches were required to give to turn in their sermons to the state. God's Not Dead made that, I think, the end of this. I think it was the end of the second movie where they talk about turning in sermons to the state, and they said that's against freedom of speech and all of this. But now, when I start putting this stuff together, it makes sense why you would turn in those papers. And we'll get into analysis of all that later. And that would be one of the things that would have saved him. Saved his life. So when... what was it? Was it a suggestion or was it a recommendation? I forget exactly, but I remember this did happen. When did the start? What would you even say about that? Start requiring churches to hand over sermons. The Houston subpoenas. I remember this was a thing in like 2012. You had to create a sermon and then you had to turn it into the state, and then the reason you do that sounds like a violation of So what happened was, the reason you have to think of like the federal government, especially in a church setting. If you're talking about things like, I mean, if you work for the FBI, you know this. If you're doing a church and you're doing pastors and all that, you want to hand them something that shows that what you're saying is already known. So if you're, how do I say this? I was thinking about how am I going to explain this to people. If you take a sermon and you talk about a sermon and you're talking about like the return of Christ, about building an army and all this other stuff, well, it sounds like it could sound, again, you're foreign to the federal government. To them, it sounds like, well, are you starting an army? Are you starting something that could go against the government? Or is that something that someone could interpret? So if you're standing there and talking about all this stuff and it just happens to sound like you're starting a revolution, that's a problem. And at the same time, where if you said that and there was a guy that was in the congregation, he said, oh, he's giving a hidden meaning that we're going to start a revolution here. And he starts building this thing, and he starts building, he goes to his house, builds barricades, and he starts talking to other congregation members and say, hey, he says that we need to start a revolution, and he starts building a following. Then they start a cult around this, and then they start uprising against the government. It sounds like an extreme thing, but it does. It can happen. I mean, people, assumptions are valid sometimes. So when you're turning your sermons, you can have the government analyze the text of what you're saying. Say, well, what could someone say out of this? Out of extreme proximity, what could someone make out of this? It could just be a everyday thing. It covers your ass. It covers your ass as a pastor. But definitely, that's how government officials and political groups, they're very careful about that ambiguity. Now you say, well, what about a song? What about a book? Well, same thing can happen, except with books. Books are public text, same as music. So you don't have to send it over, but um, music is so ambiguous, and there's bands that do it better than others, who do it more than others do, where you can have so many different interpretations, and it would be so diluted where you're only going to get like maybe one or two. Like, for example, The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. Is that a revolutionary song? Because based on the imagery, people could say that. But the majority of people, if you watch on YouTube, they're not going to agree with everything because it relates to them. They say, oh, I wish I could, someone says, well, the savior of the broken, what does that mean? So you see there's a lot of ambiguity there, but, would someone go out and kills people and start a revolution against the government and try to overthrow the president because of My Chemical Romance? You say, well, that's a liberal song. Well, the majority of people, I think, wouldn't make that assumption, but the assumption is still valid. But could it happen? Yeah. But it hasn't happened, but could it happen? Sure. Maybe there's one happening behind the scene that we don't know about, but that's what the federal government doesn't know. You don't want them to figure out, okay, what are you running? If you're the one who's saying these sermons and people are coming to you, they see you as this leader and you're on the internet, okay, who are you? What are you doing? That's what they're going to want. You don't want them to figure that out before you're aware of it. Yeah, that's what you don't want. Freedom of speech, you say it's a freedom of speech violation, but you don't know how people are interpreting what you're saying. And that was a big part of that's what I'm trying. The underlying concept is there. So now you're starting to see what I'm saying. I said, but had he said U.S. law, there wouldn't be a problem. Let's see if ChatGPT caught on to that. He said, I think I understand the distinction you're making. If Charlie had simply said, under U.S. law, your grandfather entered illegally, then the debate would have stayed within one framework. What the law is and whether it should be changed. Your concern seems to be that by saying federal law, while also invoking his own ancestry from 1620, he blurred different sources of legitimacy. Right between his position of U.S. government and the federal government, the national security state, the state. So he was over his boundaries. He crossed the border, if you will. In your view, U.S. law points directly to the nation's legal system, whereas federal law, especially alongside ancestry, invites a broader discussion about who has authority or standing to define American identity. Exactly. That's a coherent observation about rhetoric. Whether one agrees with it is another matter. It wouldn't matter who agreed. This isn't a debate. Could someone assume from that interpretation, based on what I said, and I don't know if I won't say that I don't work for the federal government because I can't. You would have expected someone to say that, right? I won't say I work for the federal government, but I can't prove I don't. And I think I've said that a few times on this channel. I can't prove I don't work for the federal government. People have asked me if I'm a Fed. I'll say, well, I can't prove I'm not. That's the best I can give you. So I have to be aware of what I say to people. So I don't say, oh, well, I'm not. Saying I'm not, well, that just dismisses what they just said to me. See, I have awareness. I say, I can't prove I'm not. That's the best I can tell you. I would add one important point though. In ordinary U.S. legal language, federal law and U.S. law are usually referring to the same body of natural law. That's true unless if you have all the context or the language that he's using, someone could say, well, you're introducing two frameworks in it. And that's what I was talking about. Said, so most listeners would probably hear those phrases as interchangeable in that context. But why there's a quote that I really like from Cars. They say, a wise man hears one A wise man hears one thing but understands two. So you hear one thing. Now that's kind of different because that's talking about, like if you're talking about one philosophy, you can actually understand 2 points of philosophy and they might not be aware of it. That could happen too. But this one was actually talking about 2 different frameworks. And one wasn't addressing. It was like on a stereo channel, but you're only hearing a mono. Which is kind of the same thing, but not really. It sounds the same, but it's not. So it sounds like you're not objecting. Got messages on my. What are the messages on my iPad? Hang on. Why did it send that to me 3 times? Alright. So it says, it sounds like you're not objecting to the legal conclusion itself. You're objecting to framing. To you, U.S. law would have kept the discussion focused on immigration law and what you was talking about. While federal law, combined with the ancestry comment and the drug thing and all the other stuff, and how he had rights to do this, you gotta know where he didn't understand the limitations of his position. He wasn't aware of his position. Now, if he was, and I'll make it now what he could have done to save his life from this. Made it seem like the argument was expanding into questions of historical entitlement of the nature of federal authority. Exactly. It seems like it's doing the same talking. It's like doing like 2 things at once. It's not immediately, but it's pulling it out. And yeah, that's exactly. It wasn't this part, not so much, but it was using his historical entitlement and ancestry for the nature of having authority over the federal government. That's what it sounded like to me. That's a subtle distinction. Whether it accurately reflects Charlie's intent, it doesn't matter about intent. It's something reasonable people can disagree about. But I can see why that wording stood out to you. Humans often think a debate is about the conclusion when a single phrase changes what they believe debate is really about. So let's say I'm about doing a debate. And someone in the audience is hearing something. It's like, what is this guy telling us? Like, why is he not addressing that? And then someone gets an idea using what he's saying against, the federal government. He's like, what are you trying to tell them? See, they're not sure. They don't know your intentions. They don't know your motives. They don't know you're aware of your unawareness. They don't know. But they're going to have to assume something by you keep talking more and more. They're going to start painting a picture about what is this guy really saying. And they're going to have to follow you around. And that's a problem. Now, I'll end it here and I'll talk about the analysis and all the federal violations he just did. Because they are serious. So, I'll end it here and I'll get on to the next video. So guys, I went for a small walk and to collect my thoughts. And I realized something. We're talking about Charlie Kirk here and his standing in government and all of this. But I didn't think about her. And I mentioned before that if someone was in a debate like this, could someone in her position, could they get in trouble? Well, I think, no, actually, it's not what I think. It's what I know. She's actually wrong here because what happened beyond the immigration thing, beyond the debate itself, what she had done, if she had intentionally done this, with the smirking and the nodding, that he didn't catch on right after she said what she said, it showed intention. But she could have also had a conspiracy to expose Charlie like this to the federal government. So she would throw him to the wolves. Now, some of you may really, if you've caught on, you realize and you think, she did what? And yeah, she did exactly that. So, what I didn't catch on first time when I watched this was she said that she was a political science. She was a, what was it, first generation student, political science degree. That was her major. I'm gonna assume she meant that means first semester. Well, that causes suspicion because she could have had a conspiracy to do this against Charlie. She thought, oh, this is going to be a great way to throw Charlie under the bus. What she had done was, now, if you read back that over, when I'm making this video, showing some self-awareness here. So when I make this video, someone watching this video can say, girl talks about grandfather who illegally border Mexico, and it already looks bad. Okay, who illegally crosses from border of Mexico and well, beyond publicly announcing it. And so as I put I'm not gonna put this in. I'm not gonna enter this ChatGPT. Oh wait, switching screens, switching inputs. So I said, girl talks about grandfather who illegally crosses from border of Mexico and Charlie exposed himself to us because of it. It's something that accent at the end. So the federal government would say, who's the girl who did this? Because what she had done was she had the federal government work for her at that point, which is, I don't know what law that would. That sounds like you just violated so many laws right there. That sounds like you really violated. That wasn't just an ethical problem. It sounds like you really violated a law right there. Making the federal government work for you, it was just kind of interesting because it flips. Because on his side, he says that he had all this right because he has ancestry. Then she comes and starts to debate, and she builds it up where she has the authority to throw him to the wolves, and everyone's looking at Charlie when she's the one who started the thing. See, that's the stuff that the federal... See, that proves the point of what I'm talking about. People doing that, they come here, and I'm not going to say it's all illegals, but there are immigrants who come over here. They want to try to prove themselves to somebody, exploit the system for their benefit, do something wrong, and expose someone to millions of people where they get hurt. And he died for it. Now, I don't know what happened to her. I mean, this is 2026, and this debate was in 2024. So I don't know if they already took care of her, if someone else saw this, took care of her, or if the federal government was like, well, we see this problem, but we can't really do anything about this until someone else brings it up, and then that goes online, like this YouTube channel or this YouTube video, and it starts going out to people, and people are like, someone needs to do something with that girl. Then eventually they will do something with that girl. So, see, that's the point where I gotta say, someone say, well, you gotta be a Fed if you do that. You gotta be a Fed if you know how that works, if you put someone in that position. I'm not I was fine. For that time being, it seemed like I was a federal employee at that time. This time. Like I said, I can't not prove that I'm not. I mean, there's many examples you could give to say that, oh yeah, he is. I mean, I'm unsanctioned. Let's say I'm unsanctioned. Maybe that's what I should say. I am unsanctioned. doing this on my free time. But yeah, I wonder. Now you could say, well, what protections would she have? Well, intentions, conspiracy. If she talked to it about online to her friends, she bragged about it. That's a problem. There's no protection. No protection. On Charlie's side, there would have been protections. So, one of the things, there's two things, possibly three, that would have helped. The first is how do I want to do this? I want to write in my notes. Maybe a sticky. Can I have my stickies? What do my stickies look like? Can I do one? Okay, I can pick. Okay, let me make a new sticky note so I can write in it. It's been a while since wait, I already got a thing that. Oh yeah, it's already here. Okay. Stickies. Okay. There is a sticky. Let me move this over. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Not too big. Okay. Should be big enough. So there's three things that could have helped. So one, three. This is kind of three. I'm putting this up there because I'm not entirely sure this would have worked. But what would have happened is so, first would have been an American who was a settler, like him, would recognize his mistake and detail it to the state. So, you would do pretty much what I just said, but you would do it in writing. I guess you could probably do it in video as well, but you would have recognize what his mistake was, and you would be just like him and say, "Hey, I know what he did wrong," and go down the list. And you would send it to the state. That would be anyone you feel applies to this. It could be the Department of State. It could have been the, let's say, maybe the FBI, CIA, different federal agencies. Pick which one fits the details and use that one. That's probably the best. That would be your best option if you weren't sure. So the state could be any federal agency. Two. Now, actually, I'll put here. Liberals would have known this. If you go to college, you would have understood this. Like I said, when you have a political science degree and that's what you're looking for, I think you would have known your if you had the intention to do it. But most likely, these would be the people who don't agree with Charlie Kirk. So they would never report it. But a conservative could if they recognize the problem. Looking beyond the immigration, they would have seen, okay, these are words that are being used. So another one would have been an immigrant, let's say an American with I would say, and then it would be an American with foreign ancestry would recognize his mistake and detail it to the state. So it's the same thing as the American settler, but the foreigner would realize his mistake. I just happen to be my great-grandparents from my mom's side just happens to be from Italy, and I saw the mistake that Charlie made here. So, and there's the third one. The third one is what sanctioned government agencies do. So this is how it works with presidents, government officials who come out. What happens is they detail their responses and scripts ahead of time for public usage, and it goes through the procedures of the state. So you always want state to analyze your things and what you're about to say. So now this is hard for debate, but what you would have to do is Charlie would have to take every topic, and he would have to report every response he could ever possibly make to the state so they can analyze it. I doubt he did this. I mean, of course we know that he didn't do this because he was killed. There was someone on the roof. He didn't have that federal immunity like a government official would have, and they just removed the guy off the roof. They would have had drones. The FBI would have paid attention. They wouldn't have let him get shot if he had that kind of protection. Now, you might be wondering right now, well, there's a commonality in these things, and it's state. Why didn't the state get involved? And this is a problem with the federal government. And the CIA has a thing with this, even with presidents. So, Trump, for example. But, you know, and I got angry at the federal government and the federal government does play a role in here. But it's not entirely their fault. You know, the CIA, yes. Yes, they could have warned him. There's a duty to warn in all of this. But he didn't have that federal immunity that sanctioned government organizations have. What, I use the word sanction. I don't know if that's what but I'm saying sanctioned. So there's a law in I believe it's 1938. We'll look it up in a minute on JWT. There's a law that prohibits the CIA or any federal agency to tell people this stuff. It's a federal violation. And we're gonna look into it. So why didn't the state do this themselves? Why didn't they warn Charlie that he was going to die? And I agree, they should have warned him. But they should have warned him. If it was a perfect world, yes, they could have. But there should have been someone in his group, and they wouldn't know they have to know the unwritten rule. You know, if there was a liberal that liked them, they would have been over there talking. Yes, I will say that it's the federal government that's the problem, but without the federal government, there would be no America. I don't hate America, but I do see that America completely needs to get rid of. You know, people, but here's the thing too, if Charlie didn't die, we won't be having this conversation. We won't be making this video about exposing this. Because a lot of people don't know this. And again, if I was I'm thinking about this. If I was a federal employee, let's say that if I worked for the CIA or the FBI or any of them, and I was making this video, and I was telling you this stuff, and I was saying, well, we need to warn people about this, and we need to. Someone needs to be aware of this and be put on the other political organizations who don't know this information. Had I been a federal employee saying that, that's actually a federal law. That's actually against federal law. And it's the same law I just was talking about. I think it's 1938. So let's go over there. I'll keep the sticky up. So I'll open a new tab. So what is FARA? Or is it FARA? I think it's FARA. What is FARA? Yeah, 1938. So FARA stands for Foreign Agents Registration Act. It is a U.S. law enacted in 1938 that requires certain people and organizations acting in the United States on behalf of foreign governments, political parties, companies, or other foreign principals to register with the U.S. Department of Justice and publicly disclose their activities. You have to, like I said before, disclosure activities, disclosure information. You wanna give that to the state, hand it over to the state. Now, there's a difference between like that. Well, for Charlie, he isn't a foreign agent. He's not a foreign agent, but had he known his foreignness of what he was saying, he should have disclosed what he was about to say to the state. Definitely, even if he didn't have to register. It says the law is primarily about transparency, not prohibition. Its purpose is to let U.S. government and the public know when political, lobbying, public relations, or influence activities are being conducted on behalf of a foreign principal. So, if you're in, like I said, to the federal government, anyone can be a foreigner to their overview. They don't know what you're doing. They don't know your motives. They don't know your intentions. They just go by what they can see, gather evidence for, and it does create problems. And that also happened with Charlie. When I was talking about when Charlie was doing this in U.S. government, had that been a foreigner who was talking about Christianity, wearing the cross, trying to get people from conservative side to go with them and getting all these political influence in the U.S. government, that would be an ethics violation on the federal government. But because Charlie was an American, he didn't think about that. And no one else in his group did either. I mean, nothing he did was illegal. You see, nothing about this was illegal. But it was just how people interpreted. And you don't want them to come to a conclusion before you're even aware of something going on. Don't want to be caught with completely clueless. And that's what I'm trying to incinerate here, to emphasize. It says examples of activity that can trigger FARA registration include lobbying U.S. government officials for a foreign government or organization, running public relations or media campaigns on behalf of a foreign principal, trying to influence U.S. public opinion or policy at the direction or control of a foreign principal, representing a foreign principal before U.S. agencies or officials. Turning Point USA was an American thing. It didn't apply to this. Comic-Con also, it doesn't fit through this either, but it works on a foreign principal. I'm an American, but it's based in, presents itself as Crimean, and I talk about Ukraine and Russia and all that. But before I even do these videos, and I did this for about 2 or 3 years before I even did these videos, was I just sent information. I have like 500 messages sent to the CIA before I make these videos. In fact, when I was even doing this channel, there was like 2 months I was saying, well, I'm gonna do this channel and this is what I'm going to talk about, and then I introduced the archives. I don't go my archives include those messages over there. So Washington D.C., I've already everything that you see on this channel already is already sent over there. Although I will give an example. I will say this. If you feel that I might have said something that seems like there's no way that I might not be aware of me saying that to the federal government beforehand, feel free to do what I just told you. Write it down. Write the details down. Call me stupid. Say, this guy said a stupid statement, and I know what he said was stupid. This is me, and provide your information if you're a foreigner or whatever. Present that information so they can check through it. If you're Americans, whatever, just as long as you're not a federal employee or you'd violate FARA. But be a free-thinking American that they're paranoid about. So write all that down, send that to them, and so they can reconcile it. So they're not the only ones that know what's going on. If you do it on my behalf, you're free. Like I said, you're free to call me stupid for not catching on to it. But I do try to catch. It's just who I am. But yeah, thanks for looking out for me if you do that, which isn't something I say very often. But feel free. So it says, it's important to note that being required to register under FARA does not mean someone is a spy or has committed a crime. Many law firms, lobbying firms, PR firms will consider it's registered because they represent foreign clients in covered activities. Another thing is, Ukraine or any other foreign officials, they do not contact me to tell me to do these things. It's just me on my own, which is very dangerous. I mean, it's like what Charlie did, but I try to cover my ass. Like when I went to DC, even these videos, they act as that. They act as confirmation to what I've said. So when I was going to DC, I had to mark down everything I had to go. Well, I didn't have to do like where I was staying. I just had to do, okay, I'll be at the White House on this day for this reason. And this is what I'll be wearing. I'm going to be here during this period of time. And I was just doing that. And I'm waiting for something. And I told them the whole 9 yards, right? If there was something that I did, like when I went to McDonald's, and I found that exploit, which I thought was an exploit to McDonald's, regarding the payment thing, and I talked about the Department of Treasury, I reported that because you want to disclose your activities. You don't want them to think that you're doing something criminal. You're not trying to do something behind their backs. I mean, you got to give them respect and credit where credit is due. Because they don't know what you're doing. You're like, okay, this guy's at the White House. Wearing this, doing that, wearing foreign attire, which no one else is wearing. What is he doing? He doesn't have a permit. Who is this? Is he trying to start a protest? See, you don't want them to try to figure that out when we don't tell them. And I'll be honest, and this is not the federal government problem. There are people who go to these places who are by themselves. They might be wearing their foreign attire, and they might be walking around the White House just taking pictures, and they might be doing something that aligns to the behaviors of someone who's trying to sabotage or someone who's trying to do a terroristic act, but they don't know. They're completely clueless, not knowing what they're doing. They're just walking around being like any other tourist, but someone could say, we got to check out this guy, what they're doing. Yeah, that happens too. And there can be false positives. There can also be some paradoxes. People can go missing for that. People can be if you're doing your part, you can be silenced. But it depends. It always depends on what's going on. But people can go missing over that, and it is something that does happen. That's a very rare thing. Charlie, that's a very rare circumstance. All of this is very rare. What I'm telling you is very, very rare, but it's there. It's in the shadows, and I'm making a video about it. It's not about free speech. It don't matter about freedom of movement, free speech. It's about how it's interpreted. You have to be aware of your environment, and people sometimes come to America and they don't know much. Maybe they, I think that maybe someone who wants to really come to America, take pictures of the White House, I would think they would do their due diligence and do their research and look at how things work before just coming over here completely clueless. But you never know. And that's exactly what the federal government says. We don't know what your intentions are. So it says, there are also several exemptions, such as for certain diplomatic, legal, academic, religious, or commercial activities. Like I mentioned about churches, sometimes churches should do it. It's kind of a good thing that churches don't really talk about the book of Revelation, because if they did, they might be talking about, because there are people who say that the United States is Babylon and that it's going to be taken down. See, that sounds right in a religious context, but think about what the FBI thinks of that. If you're saying all this stuff, you're going out in public and you're building something, especially if you were doing a mega church and you were saying that. Well, let's rise up. Let's make an event for our own against the... You see how that's bad? You see the problem with that? They don't know, and it looks bad. Willfully failing to register when required or knowingly filing false information can lead to civil enforcement or criminal penalties, including fines and imprisonment. Yeah, and if you have a federal employee that who tells you all that and tells you to bypass, shows you how to bypass all of that, make sure to do this instead. That's against FARA. It's a foreign. You're crossing your streams over and creating an overlap. That's a serious ethics violation. It's also a federal law, but yeah, I just want to make this video because I felt it's very important. Also, by the way, for Comic-Con, going back to Comic-Con, I had requested for the CIA to release this information, to release the Charlie Kirk files, all this information about him, and make it public. And now, of course, conservatives probably say it's fake news, but no, this is what actually happened. Now, I'll end with this. Regarding Tyler Robinson. So, the federal government wanted to get rid of Charlie because of this. Now, because Tyler killed him, well, he has to go through the court system and died because of that. But Charlie died because no one knew what was going on, especially conservatives. And the federal government is like, well, he did commit a crime, but what Charlie did, we knew this was going to happen. It just happened to happen in the United States with an American, and they're like, what do we do now? So what you have to, so I stood up for Tyler for that. I said, and I sent them information about that. I said, see, and I had to think about how the system would work. I said, you're going to have to do a federal government court. You're going to have to work with the FBI. You're going to have to give him a greater death penalty. He has to die in prison. He has to be in witness protection, or federal immunity, which acts as witness protection in this case. And he has to go to another country in Ukraine. Most people do not get that opportunity. They usually go missing, they're blacklisted, they go far away, you never hear from them again, you think they're dead, and that's what happens to spies and things. But here's this guy named Tyler walking around in Ukraine, and people in Crimea are like, how is he walking free when he just, and they know what's going on, they're like, but how is he walking free? Yeah, someone stood up for him. Yeah. See, and when people see, and that's the thing too. If federal employees who understand that system, they can't go out in society because there's such a high risk. So, if I go missing, well, maybe I was a federal employee and I just went missing. But those people who know that, they see this on their screens in Ukraine from Crimea, in a building, locked away from the rest of the world, say, how is he walking free? It's a sign of hope to them. So, there's two different worlds going on here, and they exist at the exact same time. So, yeah. So, guys, I just want to make a video about that, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned the ethics. Really pay attention to what's going on around you. Listen to people on media if you want to hear more about that. Try to see if you can catch on to that and see, okay, this person's speaking in this way when they're... You just pick up on it. People on the news will not make the mistakes that Shirley would make, and people talking will not make the mistakes. They're actually trained in college to... And it's just an ethical thing. But someone in the wild, the average person, would not know this. So, consider me sort of like a guardian angel of sorts. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.